From 1876 to 1980, the Badlands district of Deadwood's Main Street was home to a number of illegal brothels that operated in plain sight. Casual acquaintances, business operators, and law enforcement officials who interacted with the madams and sex workers have shared their stories with Deadwood history. The stories reveal the human side of this unlawful business, which was an integral part of the narrative of Deadwood's history.
My name is Sue Hart, and I was born and raised here in Deadwood. So I've lived here all my life, except for a little while I moved away, but I moved back. My first experience with the brothels and the ladies, I was probably about 17. I worked at the Anthony's department store. So the girls would come up and frequent our store very often. I helped them pick out lingerie, bedspreads, curtains, decorate their rooms. So that was my first experience with them. And every week, I believe it was on Wednesday, you would see that group of girls walk up Main Street, and they would go to Doc Maddox's office for their physicals. After I graduated from high school, I started working at the Deadwood Police Department. I was a full-time meter maid, part-time dispatcher.
Okay.
So again, we had various calls to those houses, and we got to know the madams. I do have to say that I never had any bad experiences. Those ladies were always very nice, very polite. They spent a lot of money in Deadwood. And one story I would like to point out is, I don't know, I was probably in my 20s, and we had a situation with a South Dakota trooper. And I can't remember, there was two incidences. Orrin Hinman was killed in the line of duty. And there was also another trooper that had a heart condition, and he had to quit work. So we got together as the department and had several raffles. Well, a fellow co-worker of mine, we were ending where the raffle was, ending. So we still had a lot of tickets, and Kathy dared me to go down and see if we could sell the remainder of the tickets. And we were overwhelmed at the hospitality that the ladies gave us and the madams. They invited us in. They bought every ticket we had left. They took every book and they purchased it. And if my memory is correct, they also donated money, because we came back with a ton of money. They let us interview or talk to the ladies. They showed us around up there. One of the prizes that we had was, it was a bundle of beef. And I can't remember how much it was. It's been a long time. But they ended up winning this bundle of beef. And they turned around and they donated it to social services for the needy families in the area. So the brothels were always there. It was just something we grew up with. We all knew, what they were.
I do remember going up there, I don't know which one it was, and it was unusual that somebody answered the door other than the madam. And I'm pretty sure it was Pam's, but a young African-American girl answered the door wearing a very, very scanty bikini and very attractive. And she said, "Pam's not here." And I said, "Okay, well, thank you." And she said, "Oh, by the way, my name is Hershey." And I got a kick out of this attractive Black woman having a working name of Hershey.
But we had one really cute incident, I'll tell you, with Joy. I wanted to know what their stuff looked like, their clothes, their night clothes. And so she said one of these days when I come up, if you're getting off early, I'll come up and I'll bring clothes and show you on my way to the cleaners. So I got off early one day and I was walking down by the bodega and I see Joy coming up the street with a suitcase. And she said, "What are you doing off already?" And I said, "I got off early, why?" And she said, "I brought those clothes." And just then, the suitcase opened up and we had ostrich feathers and you name it, all over the ground. And so she got down and I got down on my hands and knees. We were trying to stuff all this stuff back into the suitcase. So we got them finally and got them over in the back room. But that night when I went home, I was still living, I think we were still at we were up on William Street then. And my dad came in the house and he said, "I saw the damnedest thing today you've ever seen." And I said, "Really? What was it?" He said, "Well, I saw one of the hookers downtown, and this gal that looked just like you was down on the ground with her." And I said, "It was me." And I had they asked me if I could come up there and do comb outs before they went to work. And my dad said, "No, you can't do that because I'd let you." But I said, "They offered me $50 a comb out, Dad." And he said, "You still can't, Marianne. If we came up there to raid them, you'd go right in with them." So.
You want to know my experiences with the girls? I guess it was at Calamity Jane's Pan Shack. Jim and Deanne Frank were the owners. Melody Dennis was she might have worked there. I know Louie worked there with me, Louie Lalonde and Linda Flieger and Luann Aspen. The girls would come there on Wednesdays. I believe that was the day they went and had a checkup at the clinic, and then they would stop. And they were friendly, very open, had a lot of money, always buying gifts to take home to their families. Yeah, they became like just regular customers on Wednesday. We loved to listen to their stories. Well, that was good. That was my first meeting with them.
But you know what, more interestingly, we used to have a huge hunting season. November 1 was a big day. And we all looked forward to it because we knew that we had, the winter to look forward to, which, you're kind of in that work really hard all summer to make enough money. And then in the winter, you scrape by, go to the bank, probably about February, borrow some money, and then work really hard. So we were in that crazy cycle. And we knew that November 1 and that however long the hunters would come in would help us, extend that winter suffering that we did, because we just didn't have the traffic that we do now. But believe me, most of those guys that came in to hunt did not hunt. And they all frequented the jewelry stores and made sure that they were taking a gift home for their wife. And back then there were actual guys that would, that they could hire that would go out and shoot the deer for them, or whatever they claimed to be hunting. So they had some evidence that that's what they were. But that's what they did. They played cards, during the day somewhere, and they had fun at night. They, went up to the brothel and had some whiskey and they let their hair down. It was guys' night out, guys' week out.
There you go. Yeah.
So he got to do his interview with the girls that worked in the houses, and I never did see his finished product.
Yeah.
But I did go up there periodically just to let them know that we were there, and that if there was an issue that we were aware of, we would let them know.
Mm-hmm.
And if there were, for example, we were aware of perhaps some men coming out here to go deer hunting, and we had heard of issues that some men working their way out west had some problems, that we wanted to let them know what was perhaps coming their way.
And I never heard anything negative from the community.
Not really,
No.
no.
A lot of times they bought uniforms for the schools, I think, like
Mhm.
band uniforms. They were always contributing to arts, and I don't know, they were just accepted as part of the community in the 70s. So
They used to go to the,
everybody knew.
a whole bunch of them go down to the rodeo. And that's where I really thought they were just, they were, you know, their makeup was like the movie stars. And they would have pastel Western pants and jackets, you know, and then low cuts up under them. And they would, and they had cowboy hats out of the same color. Because I found 2 of them passed out down in the bathroom at the rodeo.
I was going to say, I bet those were the rodeo queens.
Yeah, that's what they looked like. They looked like the rodeo queens. Yeah, except with more makeup.
Yeah.
You know, I think that one misunderstanding that people have is that really there wasn't any, there was never an argument with people that they were here.
Mhm.
They were a part of our community. They were very generous, and it was part of Deadwood. It was what it was. They had specific rules where they weren't allowed to frequent the downtown bars, and they once a week we had a local doctor that would give them an exam to make sure that they were okay. So really, I mean, it wasn't like I think some people picture the typical, prostitute standing on the corner with her go-go boots and.
I agree with you. These young ladies were just doing what they had to do, I believe, to survive. Again, they were always very polite. They were good-hearted women. They were good to talk to. Growing up here, it was just a thing. You always knew they were there. As you got older, you realized what it was. But these women, at least the ones I came in contact with, were good-hearted women. They had hearts. I believe they had consciences. They were just trying to do what they had to do to survive.
Keepsakes and mementos from the whole period of history of the brothel raids. FBI agent Bill Wood, after one of his discussions with Pam sitting in her parlor shooting the breeze and gathering intelligence, told me that Pam had a big bowl of matchbooks with her signature purple color and Pam written in white on the front of the matchbook. And so he was talking to her, he just casually picked one up one day and then came back to my office in Rapid City and was giving me a report on what he had learned through his discussion with her that day. And he gave me this matchbook. He said, I thought maybe you'd like to have a souvenir from Pam's Purple Door. Here it is. So I kept it. I was delighted to have it. Years later, I became the attorney for the Adams Museum Board of Directors, which then became the Adams House as well, Adams Museum and House Board of Directors. So I was legal counsel for them. And they were doing a prostitution show at the Adams Museum here in Deadwood, which is a wonderful museum. And it occurred to me that I had this matchbook that I thought perhaps was unusual that somebody would have that from Pam's Purple Door. And so I told the board I had it and I wanted to donate it to the museum. And they said, well, that's great. So my wife Linda Lee and I were walking around the prostitution exhibit and visiting with some of the board members, and I came around the corner of a big glass cabinet, and on a plexi stand was my matchbook, there for everyone to see, and below it was a tag that said, matchbook from Pam's Purple Door Brothel, Deadwood, South Dakota, donated by Rapid City Attorney Jeffrey L. Viken. And I was taken aback. Linda Lee was duly horrified for the connection. What would you assume if you saw the matchbook with my name on it as to how it came into my possession? There wasn't any context for that. And so the museum still has that matchbook. It continued on in the exhibit. My name was eliminated. I think they put an anonymous donor on that, much to my professional delight. U.S. Attorney Pachota and I sat down at the time in Rapid City. We had a very experienced group of FBI agents. We actually had 27 FBI agents in the Rapid City office. We had a fixed-wing aircraft, we had a helicopter, we had the largest photo lab outside of Atlanta, Georgia.
It's quite
So-
a well-equipped office.
Well, it was very well equipped because of the overreaction by the Department of Justice to the American Indian movement and the various ongoing events between the government and Native peoples on Pine Ridge, and Alcatraz, Department of Interior. You know, there's quite a bit of activity on the militant side of those issues. And it was viewed in a particularly dark way at that time, which is part of the reason I came to Western South Dakota, to try to get involved in the process to sort out those issues. But I didn't expect to sort out this issue, but it did come our way. And we had these wonderful FBI agents, worked in teams, and I had worked with them for a couple of years at that point. So I found one of our really excellent agents with a great personality, a man named Bill Woods. So Bill Woods and I formed a team. And, you know, Department of Justice, you have to name your operation so that they can keep it straight in their records and all the rest of it. So I named this one Operation Hotbed, which, well, a hotbed of criminal activity, if that's what was going on at Pam's, that fit. It was sort of a pun connected with the brothels,
I think it's perfect.
obviously. And also Woods took on the really the role of being an undercover agent. So you can imagine the law enforcement community, every time he'd take off to come up to Pam's and Dixie's and Tommy Cox's place to work undercover, which is what he was doing, pretending to be a salesman. And he had a very engaging personality, so he befriended them, especially Pam Holiday, because that was the source of our interest, and really got along wonderfully well with her. And all the time that she was talking and he was making observations, he was gathering intelligence information to determine whether or not there may be some possibility that there was legitimate evidence to be had in connection with her house and that firearm. So that was Operation Hotbed. We had numerous supporting agents involved in the case as well, and witnesses and so on. But what we did is call a federal grand jury, which is a secret manner in which we can investigate under the Constitution. Grand juries are authorized by federal judges and then carried out by the U.S. Attorney's Office. And so at that time, federal grand jurors came from all over South Dakota, and they would be called to sit in Sioux Falls or Pierre or Aberdeen or Rapid City. And so we created an investigative grand jury. So the grand jury would have subpoena power to command the appearance of witnesses before it for the purpose of giving testimony to aid in the investigation. And it had the ability to subpoena materials and documents. And during the course of that grand jury, agents would appear before the grand jurors periodically when we would call them into session and update them on the latest information we had about Judge Wood's homicide and where we fit into that process. On a number of occasions, we met here in Deadwood. We had a secret grand jury proceeding 2 blocks away from where the brothels were open and operating.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not. And I don't know. Perhaps we were all a little playful in those years or something, but it was really a wonderful thing. Local law enforcement, police officers, sheriff's office knew absolutely nothing about this. State attorney general knew absolutely nothing about it. Because the last thing we wanted in Operation Hotbed was for any tip to go to the madams of those houses so that any evidence or any people who could give testimony on the subjects of interest would not have an opportunity to flee. They wouldn't be chipped off. And so we actually met up here. So agents, grand jurors, assistant U.S. attorneys working with the grand jury, were all bound under what is called Rule 6E. They cannot discuss in any way anything connected with that grand jury outside of the confines of that secret investigative room. So it's quite an amazing process. And the grand jurors were wonderful. They were very interested in all this. And how they went home and didn't say anything to family and friends, it's amazing, but they did not. We had no leaks out of that grand jury.
That's a good thing, and that'd be hard to do, hard to accomplish, like you said.
It is. From the very first time I met Pam Holiday, I found her to be an extremely charming person. She was extremely intelligent as well. And again, just like the sex workers, only more so, very well spoken and enormous sense of humor. I mean, she found great humor in all of this, and her lawyers less so, because they were extremely concerned about the outcome. There was some serious discussion at the Department of Justice about whether or not one or both of the lawyers had assets of Pam Holliday's in a safe in their offices, and they were really focused on Mr. Wallahan with a long-standing relationship. It had some information that there were unset gemstones and substantial currency belonging to Pam Holliday in that law office. Well, there were and still are strong restrictions on getting a search warrant from a federal magistrate judge to search a law office when their client is a target of a criminal investigation. So I took the brunt of the criticism from law enforcement that I refused to seek a warrant to search Attorney Wallahan's safe. That's an attorney-client matter. It was protected. I followed the Department of Justice policy. There's a lot of unhappiness about that decision. Not by Pam. She was delighted when she found out that. She said, "Oh, there's nothing in there anyway, Mr. Viken. I mean, you can search all you want." And then her attorney would grab her and say, "No, we'll not be searching anyone's safe in any law office in this case. You've already made that decision." But it was really an amazing opportunity to get to know her and to work with extremely talented lawyers who were on her behalf. And they were delighted when the Mann Act, the Interstate Transportation of Women for Illicit Purposes, was the charge, because they knew our presiding judge at the time, Judge Bowe, wonderful judge, was going to treat that for what it was. It was an unintended consequence of the grand jury investigation. So they weren't as happy when the tax case came out, when the prison sentence occurred.
I can, to my mind, recall like the FBI and the DCI and everybody coming in to raid. I remember hearing about it at the dinner table.
Yeah.
At that time, I was working for a little boutique in a ski shop called Wild Bill Ski and Specialty in Calamity Jane's Paycheck.
Okay.
And so I was kind of up the street and around the corner.